Well, thanks, Bill. I was told brief, so I'll do my best. My name's Tim Ford. I have been on the PASS board now for the past almost 2 years, serving in the role overseeing SQL Saturday, which I have a strong passion for, after coming up from being a chapter leader and a SQL Saturday organizer myself. But that's just a little bit about my experience with PASS. I've actually been a volunteer since the last day of my first PASS Summit back in 2002, when I was recruited to join the leaders of what was then called the Special Interest Groups, or SIGs, eventually turned those into the VCs. So in those, 16, 15 years or so, I have served in many roles. The aforementioned SQL Saturday organizer and chapter leader, SIG leader. I've served on the board now for 15 months, 16 months or so, and also have served in various stints on the program committee and did some of the fun stuff on the opening night receptions over the years for the Quiz Bowl. I am a business owner in SQL Cruise. I have a business degree, which kind of separates me from the other candidates, and I will say that being able to budget and stick to budgets and deal with financial responsibilities back to the membership is an important component of being a director. And I guess that's probably as unbrief of a brief interview that I could come up with.
All right, sounds good. Well, we're going to start right off with questions from our attendees. And the first one is about what you'd like to accomplish if elected. And the question specifically they ask are, what are the first 3 things you would want to change or implement if you get elected?
First 3 things I've changed or implement. Well, the important thing first off is that when I came into this position back in the very beginning of 2014, I had a belief that change is something that's quite easy to institute. And one of the things that I've learned serving on the board now, and I can see Bill smiling as well, is that change does not come easy. And probably what I've learned the most is that building consensus and learning when your, I won't say argument, but your opinion might be in the wrong. So I will tell you what my ideas are, but whether those will get instituted always comes down to working with the other directors themselves and coming to a consensus on what's best for PASS. So this question in one form came up during the vetting process for the slate, and one of the things that I mentioned there was looking at maybe seeing if we can switch around portfolios in terms of maybe not having a director over virtual chapters, and maybe pooling the virtual chapters into ownership along with the chapters themselves, freeing up a director to possibly look at Lynn, sorry about that. Somebody didn't silence their phone in the room. But maybe looking at having that director take over ownership of working closer with IT, because I think one thing that the board and the membership understands is that there are some strong things that we need to work on in terms of IT, and that seems to be a sticking point in a lot of the initiatives that we want to do. The other thing that I would probably institute as change would be to continue, it's not really change, but continue the steps that we're making to cultivate and associate ourselves with not just our core community of DBAs and BI engineers and experts, but also, and developers, of course, but also those people that consume what we have cultivated in terms of those involved with the analytics side of what we do in data technology.
Okay, great. So our next question also comes from our attendees, and it is about a little bit about SQL Cruise. So they ask, what have you learned from organizing SQL Cruise that has or will help you on the past board?
Well, that's a great question. Well, part of what I've gotten out of that is being able to run a training event on that scale that, granted, is smaller than Summit and smaller than SQL Saturdays, but also running it with a team of two at the heart of it, myself and my wife, who we constantly shift around what our titles are, because on a daily basis, when you own a business, your responsibilities are constantly changing. So everything from being able to manage budgets, to work within financial constraints, to understanding how to work with corporate sponsors, and with the various things that come up from attendees during the SQL cruises themselves. The big thing that I got out of it is the fact that I realized just how much of a passion I have towards learning and towards building up not just the people that have the roles that they have today, but also the people that are going to follow us in the future. It seems like I've gone through 15 years in technology in a blink of an eye, and I'm now looking at, who are the people coming along to replace me, and what technologies are they going to need in order to go ahead and have comfortable lives like I've been able to enjoy.
Okay. All right, so the next question comes from me, and it's about communicating as a board member. So given that you've been on the board for a couple of years, what did you like or dislike about how you communicated with the community? What would you do different? Any thoughts on that, about how you or other board members can communicate better with their members?
First of all, I'll preface and say that there's always room for improvement. But one of the fun things, maybe a little sarcastic there, one of the more interesting events in the term that I've served so far was last year, with some of the issues around the election and ballots getting out and deduping names, and some of the issues that rose out of that. And I think that we did a really good job of communicating what we were doing. I think there were some tough decisions that we made regarding what we could do to extend and reopen the election process without causing issues with our bylaws. It was a great learning experience in that regard, and I think that there was a vast improvement over what I'd seen, going back to 2002 when I had just joined up with PASS. I took the lessons learned there and was able to apply them myself when we had a issue around the rollout of the new SQL Saturday website, and being able to provide communication there. I think that we did a very good job of communicating with not just the organizers that had events coming up the following weekend, but also with the membership as a whole. And I think that was probably one of the most important things that I've been able to take out from my time on the board, as well as the aforementioned gains that I've got in consensus and patience, and understanding that there are processes to follow, and when you're in this position, it's a position of great responsibility to a lot of great people all over the world, and it's not just you making those decisions. It's you working with the rest of the board. It's working with your HQ counterparts, and it's also bringing those opinions and wishes and desires of the membership that you're responsible for to the table too when you're doing that.
Okay, great. So the next question also comes from one of our attendees, and they talk specifically about a consistent look and feel across the PASS community. They say they've seen many different websites and tools being used by SQL user groups and are asking about collaboration, consistent look and feel, things like that.
Okay. Well, the one of the nice things I should say about our organization is that we have a strong grassroots component. Our local chapters, the SQL Saturdays that have been an amazing success, all of these are run from the ground up. We provide support centrally and provide funding in some aspects, and we provide resources from HQ in a little bit of fashion. But I really think that it's still a good idea to let those local organizers, be they chapter leaders or SQL Saturday organizers, have the ability to pick the tools that they're most comfortable with and utilize those tools to provide the experiences back to their membership. I don't think that it's a first of all a good thing in terms of us centrally trying to mandate specific tools to be used. I also think that it would be a unbelievably difficult thing to manage and a burden where we could use those resources elsewhere to provide better options and services for our members.
Okay, great. So our next question is also from one of our attendees, and they asked about a decision that PASS made that you didn't like. And so their question is what one decision did you not like by PASS, and what would you have done different?
I'm trying to figure out, and it's funny because I think this question came up during the nomination committee talk, and I had a hard time coming up with a situation where I tended to go against what the decision was. And so I think what I have to do instead is go ahead and speak towards a hypothetical situation, which is what I'll do here. And that is, if I encounter an opinion, first of all, because the decision's not made until the entire board comes to that decision. So when somebody brings a idea to the table when we meet, it's human nature. Everybody's going to have an opinion, probably right off the bat, one way or another. And I've learned, and it's been a difficult lesson, but I've learned to allow the individual's time to go ahead and present their idea. They obviously have a good reason for wanting to do something. And then if I have concerns or I see where they maybe have not thought something through completely or from a specific angle, an angle that I might have more knowledge of, I'll raise that. And depending on the situation, it could be a very interesting and difficult discussion to have. But I would hope that whatever the decision that came would be taken, as from the board as a whole, with the understanding of and the interest of our members at heart. And if the majority of the board thinks it's a good idea, and I have the understanding that in this case, it might be something that maybe there's something there that I'm not seeing that the majority think is best for our members, I'd probably acquiesce. If it was something where it went against every inch of my feelings as in my position, maybe I would have to go ahead and throw a logjam out there as far as dissent. But I have not run into that situation so far with this group of individuals.
Okay. Our next question also from an attendee, is about 501c3. So for all the non-Americans out there, a 501c3 is the way in America becoming a nonprofit legal entity. So their question is, thoughts on user groups becoming a 501c3. Some companies won't sponsor us unless we are a nonprofit. Any thoughts or comments on that?
Well, in a roundabout way, this goes back to what I brought up earlier with allowing our grassroots individuals that are leaders in their community to make their own decisions. And if they want to go down that route, that's, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that. If they feel like that they could not provide a successful local organization and experience for our local members, and that's the only way that they could go ahead and provide that for a specific company that was looking to sponsor, there's a couple things there. Is the benefit from that specific sponsor worth the effort to go through the processes of the certification and all the tax stuff that goes along with that, or do they have to go ahead and look elsewhere for support from a sponsor?
Okay, great. So our next question is about growing leaders, but more specifically growing leaders internationally. So the question reads, global growth is important to PASS, but what about global growth of leaders? How can you help chapter leaders and regional mentors in countries with smaller communities and maybe just one user group?
Well, I think the important thing is what we try to do now with providing a tiered organization from HQ and the board all the way down to those individual members. Working with, starting with the directors, moving on to the community evangelists, to the regional mentors, to the chapter leaders and SQL Saturday organizers. The core for getting that growth is making sure that we have the right people in those positions that are passionate about growing not just the community, but growing leaders as well. And so I think that we have great community evangelists with Carmen and Carla, and I think that for the most part we've been successful with having strong regional mentors in order to go ahead and liaise between the CEs and the board and the membership. So when it comes right down to it, I think it's making sure that we have strong regional mentors. I think that they're a vital role to the success of PASS, and having a good chain of communication. There's a reason why we have our contact information for each of the directors on the website. If you need to get a hold of us, and we encourage that, then there's a means to do so. So if you find a situation where you're not getting the local support you need and you're not getting the resources in order to provide an ability to grow leaders and grow knowledge, then we want to know about it.
Okay, great. So my next question is about the business analytics event. You have been on the board for a couple of years, so you've had this discussion, you've had this debate. We've had people ask questions about this. Is this a good thing? Should we expand the community? Should we expand our organization in this direction? If you could just give us your thoughts on that, and we'll make this our last question too.
Okay, I'll do my best because I know I took quite a bit of time on this when we were having our slate vetting. When it comes right down to it, I think that we have to look at where we're going by looking at where we've come from. There were the same sort of conversations many years ago when it came to the business intelligence community. Granted, they're tied a little bit closer to the core developers and DBAs that we have in our SQL community right now. But those talks were there. Do they belong? Are they one of us? Those sort of things. But I distilled that down a bit. And I think that conversation can be extended and compared with the business analytics community. These are individuals that, just like the DBAs who cultivate the data and organize it and make it accessible and usable to various sources, and the BI experts that we've got that arrange that data in such a way to provide insights and also do reporting and analytics in their own regard with their own tools are also part of the community. The developers, the people that put everything together that allow us to get that data to begin with and make use of that data are part of the community. And I think that those people working in business analytics likewise are part of that community. They're using the tools that we're using in some regards. They're using different ones as well in Power BI for the most part, and Tableau and other things. I just think that they're an extension to our existing community. We've gone through decades of collecting all this data, and essentially now what we've got is the age of, we're coming out of the age of data into the age of decisions, I think. And so what we've got now is all of this valuable data. It's a great time to be in data. And we've now added on this whole other community, not just inside of PASS, but this whole other community that is focused around making solid decisions with that data. And for us to bring them in to the fold and bring that into a cohesive entity only scales out where we're already at. People would say that Hadoop doesn't belong in Hive and all those other technologies, and we now don't. We would be shocked if we didn't have sessions at Summit that didn't focus on those areas. I think the same can be said for the business analytics.
Okay, great. I want to thank everybody for attending. We very much appreciate it. Thank you for the questions that you asked. And I want to thank Tim for his time on the board and for running for the board again. Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you.
And with that, we are done. Thank you.